Hi guys and welcome back. The time has finally come for us to check on some fresh, refined stuff from both camps. So in the episode number 9 of the Legacy GPU battle, it's the turn of the Radeon HD 7870 versus Nvidia's GTX 670. How is the decade-old first generation of GCN going to stand up against Team Green's Kepler architecture? Well, let's find out and get into it. Starting off with AMD's fine wine, the HD 7870 was high-end card released in March 2012 with a price tag of $349 USD. Made on 28nm process, the card was equipped with 2 GB of memory, clocked at 1200 MHz and a core clock speed of 1 GHz. This card used PCI Express 3.0 and AMD promised it's the sweet spot between the lower-end cards and the top-end Tahiti cards. We will of course put this claim to test. Let's now take a look at the opposing corner. Much anticipated and few months later comes the GTX 670. This $399 USD card was released in May 2012 and was made on the 28nm process. Nvidia equipped it with 2 GB of memory clocked at 1500 MHz and a core clock speed of 915 MHz. Specs wise, positioned slightly below the 680 but at 100 USD cheaper. Was it the perfect balance? Looks like an interesting battle ahead of us. I'm curious to see how is the process refinement reflecting on power consumption, and was GTX 670's extra 50 USD over the 7870 worth spending back in the day? As usual, before we get on with some testing, let's take them apart. Now both cards tested today came from board partners. The HD 7870 is of my favorite DirectCU2 design, and the GTX 670 is a pre-overclocked model from Gigabyte featuring the WindForce cooler. Both cards look great, lots of heat pipes to be seen, but I still prefer the metal finish of the Asus card, although the 670 looks great too and has an additional fan. 7870 required 2 6-pin to power on. The 6070 is slightly more demanding and wants 1 8 and 1 6-pin. Both cards offer same display output options, so there is HDMI, DisplayPort and DVI to choose from. Let's open the Nvidia card first. So easy, just 4 spring-loaded screws and the cooler comes off. I like what I see here. Those heat pipes will make direct contact with the GPU die, and also the memory modules will share the cooler capacity. Way to go. The old thermal paste was not completely dry, but it was so ready to be reapplied. Also, I got to use my old trusty brush.
Nice.
Well, I think it's ready to be put back together. HD 7870 next, and here, too, there's just 4 spring-loaded screws. But unlike with the 670, this card snapped loudly as the old thermal paste let go. In all honesty, this looks very nice but inferior to a Gigabyte's cooler. Not sure what is up with the thermal paste Asus used here, it's rock solid. Not even soaking it with isopropyl alcohol helps. Come on Asus. I had to scrape it off carefully not to cause any damage. With fresh MX4 in place, let's assemble it and move on to thermals and acoustics next. Freshly repasted HD 7870 behaved, and under a typical load I measured 55 dB. Power consumption at the wall was just 171 watts and peak temperature was 63 C. The GTX 670 was virtually identical, and at 55.5 dB there was nothing to complain about. The total power draw at the wall was slightly higher, but the same peak temperatures of 63 C really impressed me. But now, let's finally check the performance figures, starting in Heaven benchmark. GTX 670 takes the top spot in our graph, overclocked to 1137 MHz on the core and 1525 on the memory. It pushed 1179 points. Overclocked Radeon HD 7870 is about 25% behind with 959 points. What's really nice to see is that both cards are more than surpassing their last generation predecessors and at reduced power consumption too. What do you think of those results? I'm looking forward to testing the top tier and also the dual GPUs in the upcoming videos. Make sure you hit the subscribe button not to miss any of the future content. 3D Mark Firestrike was next, and here the gap really narrowed. But in the end, the GTX 670 wins by about 4% with 6,860 points. So much for the benchmarks, but how about games? Well, let's find out. We start by 2019's Outer Worlds. This beautiful looking title with medium settings at 1920 by 1080 runs smoother with the GTX 670, and at nearly 51 FPS on average, this was very playable. HD 7870 was behind by 20%. Titanfall 2 was next, and here the 7870 takes the lead. With very low texture streaming budget for GPUs up to 2 GB of VRAM, game chose mixture of medium and high settings. ISO 70 FPS on average with AMD card and just 60 with Nvidia, but both cards were capable of smooth gameplay and I was really impressed by those results. .2018's Crew 2 with medium settings leveled up the playing field and both cards performed very similarly. The HD 7870 offered better average at 48 FPS, but the GTX 670 saw better 1% lows. So who gets the point here? Mafia Definitive Edition with low preset saw similar results. At around 38 FPS on average with both cards, it was playable but only just. Damn, this game is demanding. I think both cards suffered here because they only just have 2 GB of VRAM. Only just about starting my playthrough in ARK Survival Evolved. I used medium settings and the game ran better with the GTX 670 at 44 FPS on average. I didn't enjoy playing this game with 7870 and I would have never guessed the difference was only about 20%. It really felt like 670 was at least twice as fast. Closing the game testing with some Crossout. Do you guys play this game at all? With high settings, both cards provided great performance. 7870 slightly ahead, but not by much. But since 1% lows are better too, I think it's only fair we give this point to the AMD card. Now then, let's summarize. Right from the start, I thought it was going to be a game over for the 7870. At the end of the day, 670 was more expensive by 50 USD or about 14%, and when confirmed by Heaven benchmarks, I had very little hope. But then, the game testing finally revealed what fine wine tastes like. There is no winner here, but we have to give it to Nvidia for synthetic benchmarks. Well done. Cards were also closely matched for noise and thermals, if for slightly lower consumption with the AMD card. To think that we can play AAA titles with cards that are decade old, now that makes me happy. Both cards are easily obtained on the second-hand market right now for about £40 or about 47 USD. So which of the two has aged better? Did you own any of them? Let me know down in the comments below. Thanks for watching and be sure to stay tuned in. In the next episode, we will look at the fastest single GPU offering of this generation. So I hope to see you there.